welcome to another episode of Taking Root. My name is Erica Lyon. I'm the Agriculture and Natural Resources Educator for Jefferson and Harrison counties. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about spotted lanternfly. So if you're not familiar yet with what spotted lanternfly is, it's an insect that was recently introduced to Pennsylvania. They're classified as a type of plant hopper, which means that they are an insect that sucks the sap from its host plant. They are quite large for a plant hopper, however, with adults reaching up to 1 inch in length and about a ½ inch wide. Females are often slightly larger than males and have longer legs. Adult spotted lanternflies have light brown forewings dotted with black spots, with smaller spots located at the edge of the wings. The cryptic coloration of the forewings allows for spotted lanternfly to blend in against the branches of its host plant. The hind wings, as you can see, are brightly colored red with black spots. Individuals tend to employ the coloration of their hind wings and abdomen as a defense against predation. The spotted lanternfly originates from Asia. It is commonly found in China, India, Vietnam, and Taiwan. It has also been introduced to other countries such as Japan and South Korea, where its spread across those countries took place in only a few years. Since its identification in the Philadelphia area, it has spread all the way to the western side of Pennsylvania, as well as to other states including New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, and West Virginia, all within the last 6 years. Sightings of this insect have been reported in Ohio over the summer and early fall, although there is currently, as of now, no confirmation of a spotted lanternfly infestation. A new population of spotted lanternfly was found in eastern West Virginia, so it's not really a matter of if it will get here, but when. Here is the initial quarantine in Berks County, Pennsylvania in 2014. We can see that it has expanded to 4 counties the following year and has continued to grow through time. So here's a map that shows different monitoring stations across Pennsylvania for spotted lanternfly. Spots in green indicate that spotted lanternfly was not observed at these locations, whereas red indicates that an infestation was found. So you can see it's mostly localized in southeastern Pennsylvania in 2016. When we jump to 2018, that area has substantially increased in size. And then this was from earlier this year, counties that are currently under quarantine, and we can see that spotted lanternfly has appeared to have jumped from southeastern Pennsylvania to the western side. Beaver and Allegheny counties, for example, are now currently under quarantine. In Pennsylvania, the response was fairly swift. They conducted surveys to identify where spotted lanternfly was occurring, what hosts they were on. They utilized federal assisted eradication programs to keep populations in check, as well as having volunteer egg mass scrapings and tree banding to help trap spotted lanternflies. Of course, Penn State is doing quite a bit of research along with the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture, and they have implemented quarantines in the counties where infestations have been confirmed. But despite all these efforts, the spotted lanternfly populations there have continued to expand into new areas. Keep in mind when you're traveling across state lines that some states do have quarantines in effect for certain counties. For example, if you're traveling to the Pittsburgh area, both Beaver and Allegheny counties are within this quarantine, as is eastern Pennsylvania, including the Philadelphia area. This means that the movement of any spotted lanternfly living stage, whether it's adult, nymph, or egg, are prohibited from movement out of those areas. Items potentially carrying lanternflies are also prohibited, so you need to make sure that you check your equipment, vehicles fairly thoroughly to make sure there's no hitchhikers. Humans can also be responsible for the spread of spotted lanternfly. You can see here in this photo that there is a nymph that was found on a vehicle tire. You can also get egg masses that are laid on pretty much any part of the vehicle. Make sure to check the inside near the engine to make sure there's no adults hitchhiking as well. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the life cycle of spotted lanternfly. Eggs are laid September through November. Egg masses of about 30 to 50 eggs per mass are frequently found on rusty metal objects, including vehicles, trailers, and trains, trees, stones, and furniture. The insect overwinters as egg masses. New egg masses are covered in a white coating. As they age, they begin to turn a grayish hue, and by the time spring comes around, that outer coating begins to flake off, exposing the eggs underneath. Hatch will occur sometime between April and May. All 4 nymphal instars are mostly black, but the 4th and final instar has different markings and coloration, including the vibrant red color. Spotted lanternfly does not have a larval stage since it undergoes incomplete metamorphosis. Early instars are easily knocked off trees by wind, but they tend to fall less frequently as they develop. Their feet have adhesive pads that allow them to climb. The larger the pads that they have means the better the climbers they are. Nymphs aggregate on the host plant to feed, preferring woody stems as they grow older and progressing onto tree trunks and branches as they develop into the 4th instar. First appearing in July, the adult spotted lanternfly becomes more abundant in August. Adult populations tend to peak early to mid-September. In September, the adults begin to lay their eggs, starting the cycle all over again. Spotted lanternfly feeds on a variety of hosts. Some of these might include plants like tree of heaven that are invasive, or important crop species like grapes or apples. Here we have a couple of spotted lanternfly adults that have landed on the bark of a sugar maple. As you can see, they're fairly cryptic in that they blend in quite well with this bark. In this photo here, we have some spotted lanternfly adults feeding on a wild grapevine. And in this photo here, we have a mass of spotted lanternfly adults feeding on a cherry or plum tree. You can see that there's so much feeding going on that we actually have the development of sooty mold, which is seen around the base of this tree. Sooty mold is just one of the signs that you might see of spotted lanternfly feeding. You may also notice oozing sap, or what we call weeping, on a tree. When you have a significant amount of feeding going on, then you'll start to notice other symptoms like wilting, leaf curling, as well as dieback. Sooty mold itself does not feed on the plant, but it can impede photosynthesis when you get a thick enough mat of it. It can also cause distress for residents when it is found in huge enough quantities. It signals that spotted lanternfly might be feeding on those particular plants, so if you see sooty mold, it might warrant a closer look. However, it's important to understand that the presence of sooty mold doesn't necessarily mean it's spotted lanternfly causing it, as there are a variety of other insects that will also attract sooty mold. In addition, the spotted lanternfly excretes a sugary excrement known as honeydew. Honeydew builds up and promotes the growth of that fungal sooty mold by providing it a rich substrate to grow on. To add to the problem, honeydew also attracts bees, wasps, and other nuisance insects. Both nymphs and adults of the spotted lanternfly feed on the sap of host plants through both leaves and stems, which can affect photosynthesis and stunt the growth of the host. While it feeds on a diverse array of plants, this plant hopper prefers tree of heaven or ailanthus. Spotted lanternflies have showed the longest phloem feeding time on tree of heaven, as well as wild and cultivated grape. The host range narrows significantly at the adult phase, while nymphs are more generalist and can feed on a wide variety of plants. If you suspect that you have found spotted lanternfly, make sure that you contact the Ohio Department of Agriculture or submit your observations through the Great Lakes Early Detection Network. You can also bring suspect specimens to our office or contact us and we can come out and take a look. We will send them to the Ohio Department of Agriculture for confirmation. If you suspect that you have found spotted lanternfly and would like to submit a sample to ODA, make sure that that specimen is dead and make sure that it's still intact. Don't squish it. Otherwise, it's going to be hard to identify that insect. Samples are placed in vials with ethyl alcohol or isopropanol. Usually about 70 to 80% should be fine. The vials should be placed in a zipper style bag, and if you collect specimens from different locations, say different trees spread out in an area, those should be placed into different vials as they may be different species. A completed sample submission form must accompany that vial or container, and you can find these submission forms at the Ohio Department of Agriculture's website. Also, make sure to take a picture, especially for egg masses. A photograph of any life stage can be submitted to the same email that I had mentioned earlier, or to the Great Lakes Early Detection Network. If you find spotted lanternfly egg masses, make sure to scrape them off the surface that you find them on. You can also place the eggs into alcohol or hand sanitizer to kill them, to be sure, but make sure you remember to report all destroyed egg masses that you find. With many invasive species, detection is often the first step. Make sure to download the Great Lakes Early Detection Network app at apps.bugwood.org. For more information on spotted lanternfly, feel free to give our office a call at 740-264-2212. We also have cards in stock that can assist with identification. These will fit into a wallet fairly easily and can be used to compare specimens to see if they might be spotted lanternfly or not.
For a quick clip from Forage Focus. My guest today is Cliff Little, and Cliff and I are going to talk with you for a couple minutes about a prickly, pokey, pesky weed in pastures. That weed is Canada thistle.
Canada thistle. Have you seen stuff graze this well, Christine?
Oh, heavens no.
Sometimes sheep will nibble on it a little bit, maybe eat the blossoms out of it, but goats might nibble on it. But I'll tell you, if you ever gotten near it, it kind of hurts, doesn't it?
It is pokey. I certainly wouldn't want to take a bite of that. Now, I've had all kinds of people tell me this is one of the most difficult weeds they have to control. What makes it so difficult?
Well, Canada thistle produces by seed, produces a lot, and it can sprout off of the rhizome. You know, we had one state specialist tell us that a small section of that roots system, part of that rhizome, could end up encompassing a quarter acre in 1 year.
My goodness. So a contact herbicide is not going to get an adequate kill on this if we're in a herbicide control program?
You will need herbicide. Bush hogging it out is hard to do as well, and go to Ohio Weed Control Guide. You can find the most effective herbicides there.
As always, you can contact your county extension office to find those resources.
This is a very common tree in Ohio. It's called sugar maple. It occurs throughout the state. It has simple leaves. Each leaf has a single leaf blade. Have this typical shape, you think of the Canadian penny or the Canadian flag. They'll typically have 5 major lobes, and the veins that run to the tips of each of those lobes join right at the base of the leaf, like the veins on the palm of your hand. So we call that palmate venation. They'll have a long, typically green petiole, and those leaves are going to be opposite. So they are going to be paired up. You'll have one on each side of the twig. That's also where the side or the lateral buds occur, so that's where branching begins. And so branches will also typically be opposite on sugar maple. Sugar maple will have greenish to yellowish flowers that occur early in the spring. They'll produce fruits later in the fall. The fruits are what we call samara. They're winged. They're going to be paired, and they attach together and form a U shape or a horseshoe shape. You break the individual fruits off, toss them in there, they'll spin down. They're wind dispersed seeds. Also, those lateral and the terminal buds, the bud at the tip will be sharp and pointed, almost like a sharpened pencil. When they're mature later in the spring, or later in the summer, if you touch them against the palm of your hand, they're fairly sharp. They're going to be brown. Twigs are going to be about the same color. Another characteristic about sugar maple is that it's shade tolerant, so it holds on to the lower leaves. So when we look up through the canopy, there's not a whole lot of light that comes through, and they're typically branches very close to the ground. Sugar maple will also have a thick bark, large thick plates, and on a lot of trees right down here in the seams, you're going to have almost a salmon or lightish pink color. Sugar maple, obviously sugar maple is very valuable because of the sap that it produces, and Ohio is typically in the top 10 of states that produce maple syrup.
Okay, so we want to talk about some maintenance items at this point. Chainsaws today, very robust in the sense that they're running a lot faster than the chainsaw of 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. So it's important to make certain that our air filters are clean, making certain that our vents, our air cooling fins on our cylinder head are not plugged up with a bunch of sawdust and debris. So in order to clean the air filter, I want to engage the choke position, and then I can pop the air filter off, raise it off, and then clean it. And this air filter usually splits in half so that you can get in there and clean that stuff out. I use compressed air at home, a brush in the field, or the old tap on the tailgate. Certain it's back and in the seated position. Bring it back on. So in a setting where you're a professional user or a very frequent user, you want to do a monthly teardown or a weekly teardown, depending on frequency of use. In that case, I would take the side case off. I would blow all that stuff out of there, in here with the air hose, and blow out all the nooks and crannies. Do likewise with the side case. In this particular saw, the chain brake is outboard. It is in the side case. So here's the chain brake. When you take this side case cover off, the chain brake has to be in the released position in order for this to come off. If you've got a pull, pry, or tug on that to remove that, it's still in the locked position, and this band is stuck around this drum, not allowing it to come apart. So we take and clean all that out with the air hose. Use our saw tool to clean that stuff out. We want to make certain that it's not building up behind this band, causing that band to ride up tight against that drum, which would allow it to wear and break, and then we wouldn't have a functioning chain brake when we needed it. You can see a tremendous amount of sawdust and bar oil does collect in most places and needs to be cleaned out on a regular basis. Okay. The other thing is that while we're doing maintenance here is that we want to make certain that this oil port is clear and free of debris so that the oil can travel out the bar and to the sprocket tip out here on the end. So there's two schools here, those who grease this sprocket and those of us who don't. And I don't grease this sprocket. I allow my bar oil to do the job. And quite frankly, I don't have any more failure by not greasing than somebody who does grease. So this is also an oil port coming from the oil tank, making certain that it's clean. But we want to make certain that all of this grime and baked on, caked on stuff here gets scraped away. Because what happens is that keeps building up. And as it builds up, it creates a high point for our bar to clamp down on. And when that happens, this sawdust gets smashed in between the side case and the power head. And it never allows full metal to metal contact from side to side. You're creating a high point for it to clamp down on. And you run into a situation where your chain is always loose. Like, I just tightened my chain and now it's loose. What's going on? Why is that happening? And most likely it's because that stuff is just piled up right here and it's not allowing the saw to pinch from the power head to the bar to the side case, nuts to pull all that together. The other thing is that because of that, you'll constantly have a drip of oil that comes out the bottom because that oil port is leaking as opposed to allowing it to come out the side of the bar. So in order to put all that back together, I'm going to clean this off. Hang the bar. Put our chain on in the right direction, making certain the points of the cutter are pointing towards the end of the bar. Engaging the sprocket with the drive links of the chain. Setting it on. Putting it in place. Once it come apart, we'll go back together. We'll loosen the side case adjustment screw just a little bit. There. Tighten that up, and the next thing that we'll talk about will be chain tension.